therapy that I know of, pretty much except psychoanalysis, has a very big chunk of CBT in it. So it was a
Hmm.
very natural thing for me to do because in any type of orientation, CBT is a cornerstone.
Yeah. I think everything aside from Freudian psychoanalysis or whatever it was called, I think they're all kind of CBT because ultimately it is how you behave. It is what's happening in your head. And
Thoughts,
what's
you control your thought, feelings, and then your behaviors. Yep. It's a
exactly.
cycle. It's called the triad, the cognitive, the triad.
Yeah. So you decided to write 110 tips and tricks.
Mhm.
I'd love to go through all 110 of those with you, but I think people would benefit from checking out your book, and that link is in the show notes below. But
Great.
what are some of the, you shared a few, but what are some of the other tips that are in your book that people can apply to their everyday life and learn more about if they decide to read your book?
Well, one of the tips that I've always liked is to develop an observing head. So if you're feeling emotionally charged and upset, to imagine first thing, think of what your thoughts. I'm always getting back to identifying your thoughts and then imagine them on a cloud and observing it. And instead of it's called cognitive diffusion. Instead of looking from your thought that, let's say, I'm a loser, you're looking at your thought. There I go again, thinking I'm a loser. So you're defusing that thought from your head and you're looking at it rather than from it. And that can bring a lot of peace to people because it makes you distance yourself from your distressing thoughts. So you can do that with imagining leaves on a stream, and that's a part of acceptance and commitment therapy. Stephen Hayes has that as a very popular technique
Hmm.
because, again, CBT is in all these types of therapy, and I include them all. Um, Imagine that you have an upsetting thought that, I'll never find someone to love. And you put it on a leaf and you diffuse it from your head. And so you don't believe it anymore necessarily. You're watching it and you watch it float away. That's an example of an imagery. I really like also developing a toolkit that is for whatever you want: anxiety toolkit, depression toolkit, stress management toolkit, and actually assembling specific metaphorical objects and put them
Hmm.
in a jar, put them on your kitchen counter in a basket or whatever, and they're reminders of self-care. So
Hmm.
that could be a Hershey kiss to remind you the importance of self-love, for instance,
Hmm. Yeah.
self-kindness. And then maybe an elastic band to remind you, just like the guitar string, if I stretch too much, I'm going to break. I'll have a nervous
Hmm.
breakdown. But if I don't get engaged and committed, I'm going to feel kind of hopeless and depressed. I want to have the right amount so that elastic band can trigger. And you can do that with your kids. Let's think, of an anger management box over here. Let's think of visuals that will remind us. So that's another example. Another one is coping cards. A lot of times when, let's say you're speaking up at a meeting and you're really nervous, make up some cards, whether you print it on the computer and and print it up, or you just write it on, let's say, old-fashioned note cards. When I get nervous, I'm going to remember my self-worth does not depend on what other people think of me. What I have to say is important. Maybe you can have a quote, an affirmation. Those are also in my book. Thinking of self uh,
I
uplifting
have
statements
I have a list
that
of
are reminders.
affirmations
Oh wow!
laminated.
What do you have written
Yeah.
here?
So these are, I have them laminated. I have them on my monitor here. I try to remember to read
Wow.
them every day.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you
I
share a
am,
couple?
yeah, I'd be happy to share them. I don't know. I did these over a year ago. I'm trying to remember why I did the first one, but it was, I am handsome.
Right?
I
You are.
am, thank you. I am worthy. I am divine. I am deserving of what I want. I am lovable just as I am. I will always survive. I will never give up. I'm resilient and I always try my best.
Oh wow, okay. I love it. And that's such a perfect example of one of my tips is reminding you of your worth in whatever form you need with affirmations. And you can even have affirmations in a box. You
Hmm.
put all those affirmations, you make strips, you print them up, make strips, and then every day that will be your affirmation to focus on that day. There's a
That's
lot of things you can do with affirmations to remind you of your worth.
and so practical. Like everybody essentially has access to paper and
Yep.
a box or a cup or a bowl or
Yep.
anything like that. And
Exactly.
that's what I like about the way you kind of simplify things, because again, it's like you look at, even if I were to look at your book and it was um, tech CB applying CBT techniques to your everyday life, overwhelming. That's but here's 110 quick
Right.
tips and
And they're
tricks.
all on their own. So it's not as overwhelming because let's say you want to overcome regret. You go to the regret chapter and there's different, there's 11 items in each chapter and
Hmm.
you look at what, getting over guilt, you know, having, certain topics within regret and whichever appeals to you that day, so it's not
Yeah,
like you have to read the whole thing to get there. You just pick it up. So it's not as overwhelming as some books because you don't need to have the other four chapters before. You just go right there
exactly.
and you read the tip. And then there's usually a worksheet or a handout. CBT is very rich in worksheets and handouts. And because if you go to therapy, let's say, and you learn skills, it's kind of like going to have a personal training session with a physical trainer.
Hmm.
If you don't practice between sessions, how fit are you going to get? So
Very.
you need to have some of the routines that you do so that by the time you go to the session, you're already even stronger.
And you're building on your skill set. That's
Exactly.
the
Need
yeah.
repetition, like with logs and diaries. The some of the tips are like logs that you can fill out. And I recommend in my book to copy those logs so that you could keep on filling them out. And
Yes.
maybe you don't do it for a couple of weeks until something comes up and you feel the need. Then you have the tool. Maybe you
Hmm.
don't always need the tools, but
Exactly.
when you need the tools, you know where to go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then you're not starting from scratch every single
Exactly.
time, which is how I know
Exactly.
I used to feel. Every time it would be a breakup, it'd be a tough day at work. I always felt like I was starting over. Like I learned nothing.
You, but you do.
Yeah,
You learned a lot, and it's accumulated wisdom.
that's a good point.
And you're never starting over. You start from where you were with your experience.
It's very, very well put. Um, you have a plethora of free resources on your
Yep,
website.
I do.
And I
Yep.
went to your website before we were chatting today. And what I want to say is a lot of times you go to a website and it's not always like therapist, some sort of coach or some sort of person. And they're trying to get your email. They're trying to, put you in their nurture campaign or their marketing funnel so they can sell you some kind of service. And I know you do coaching and we all got a business room, but what I appreciate and what I wanted to chat a little bit about is the number of free resources that you have that
Yes.
you don't even need to give an email. It's literally a PDF you can
Yeah.
download.
I mean,
There's
you
like
can give me your email, and you could be on my mailing list, but I don't really do much with a mailing list anyway. Um,
yeah,
I just basically want to have things out there to give people a taste of how to be a victor instead of a victim.
which is great. And so some of those resources for people, like there's stuff on assertive communication,
Mhm.
unhealthy thinking habits, stress management.
Right.
Some of the stuff I'm sure is in your book, which is something people can carry around.
Well,
But
some of them are
I,
literally from the book. I actually say
oh,
from this book, from that book, but then there's a lot that I include in the book, but I don't necessarily say they're from this book. But I have a
yeah.
lot of handouts and worksheets. and visualizations. And people like self-help quizzes. And actually, in my latest book, 110 CBT Tips, each of the 10 chapters have the 11th of each one of those chapters. The 11th item is a self-help quiz for that chapter that you can take over and over again to see how you're doing. So people like self-help quizzes because it can kind of like see what kind of range and if they can improve on yesterday. It's not comparing yourself to anybody else. It's comparing to where you were yesterday.
Yeah. When I wrote my little self-help journal, I put at the end of every week, I had like this rating system for people to tally up how they were seeing so that over the course of 8 weeks, they could see how they improved. The most people that would DM me or comment on it to me, that was their favorite part. It like wasn't the journaling, it wasn't the reflecting. It was like, I'm glad that I could like see my progress, whether it was positive or negative. People, so you're right about that. Even in my one piece of experience I have with
for what I did. That's very well put. Thank you.
It is. Yeah, it's very true. And I even encourage, so my girlfriend is, I don't know if she cares, but I'm going to say it. She doesn't always listen. So she has narcolepsy and she's recently diagnosed. So she's going through all sorts of different, medications, procedures, stuff to try and figure out what's best for her to manage it. And I encourage her, I'm like, you should track how you're feeling through all of these things. Cause it's up and down railroad when you're, treating a new condition. And just like start tracking the feelings and the emotions and how tired you are, how awake you are, and when you're going to sleep, and is it early or is it later? And that way you have like association of something with all of this stuff. And so it's not just it helps us, but it's also like a really practical tool for you to learn what's working and what's not.
Yep.
So that I appreciate that you do that with all of your work.
Yep.
So I encourage everyone to go check out your website and obviously your book as well. Yeah, because I'm a fan. I actually ordered it the other day, and I think it's coming today. Because I'm all about the tips and the tricks and the simplicity of stuff. Because I think, like I said earlier, and especially for men, sometimes therapy's scary. It's this big concept, and it's much to its benefit. It's very popular right now to talk about therapy and use therapy speak. And, we're trying to destigmatize it. And so many therapists and psychologists and even neuroscientists, everybody's sort of trying to normalize this, which is a great thing, but it can also be so intimidating. And I think that what you do and what so many people are trying to do is break it down into tiny chunks. Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.